Alright guys, so it's May 24th. This is a recap on the trade analysis for Bitcoin. I had a Bitcoin short to 75k. From the previous video, we established talking about a Bitcoin trade that I was looking at that was a possible short. What I did was I looked at the 4-hour, decided that it was a bearish structure because we saw lower lows and lower highs being made. As you can see here on a macro scale, it just kept going down. So with that pattern, I used the past as proof that price could always reach that point, which was the newest low. And then once it went back to the correction phase, I went ahead, scaled into the 1 hour and 15 minute, and I decided to confirm both trends. For the 1 hour and the 15 minute, I decided to make an observation and then place an entry on a short. Hence why I made a short play and we turned a profit. So I'm gonna just take that away for now. So the short happened sometime around here, and our goal was to, where was it? I want to make sure I do this correctly. Okay, I think it was somewhere around here. I did a stop probably somewhere like up here, and then my TP was set at 75k. And as you can see, price already went past that. Actually, it went as far as 74.2, but I set my TP for 75 because I knew that price on the daily would shoot up around this range. So if you look at the wicks in previous price history for Bitcoin, we shot up buyers to control around 75k. So I figured that was a psychological number to work with. If we came back to this range, we'd start hitting, we would for sure hit 75k. Anything past that is just a bonus. I just set TP at 75 since I wasn't going to be looking at charts the whole time. And on top of that, it was a healthy 1 to 3 RR. So we made a 1 to 3 profit, which was perfect. It was literally the perfect play. It was an A+ play. We had a 4-hour bearish trend, 1 hour bearish trend, and then 15-minute bearish trend, all confirmed. Hence why we had an extremely high probability trade, right? So after that concluded, I went ahead, took profits, and now I'm looking at the second trade. This video is going to basically cover this, what the second trade might look like. So I hope what I just went through covered basically everything for the first trade. You know, time frame correlations, ICC played out perfectly. You know how it went. So here's what I'm looking at right now for Bitcoin. So after that play went, and we spent some time away, because my personal rule is that I don't make, I don't make a play if I don't see anything obvious, right? So after that play, occurred, I stepped away from the charts, and for that brief period, let me get the measuring tool. This entire price went up after that play happened. So this entire move right here was just price correcting back into the 4-hour correction phase. The reason why it's a 4-hour correction phase is because this was the newest low until this became the newest low, right? So this is the current newest low of the session that we're looking at. Session meaning in the entire structure that's being played out, right? This was the previous new low, and then that got broken out to making this new low, right? In terms of ICC, this was the indication. This was the correction from this low. This was the new continuation phase to a new indication. Sorry, this was the continuation phase to a new indication, right? And so I have to be clear about this so you guys will understand that we are just working with proof. When it comes to ICC, the best part is you have proof to work with so that you can play off of that, right? Really, TP could have been here, but because it was a bearish downtrend, we got to hit a newer low. And I knew that low was going to be a psychological number just because all the momentum from the previous history of Bitcoin was hinting at a possible lower low. So I played off that. And because current price action is telling us that it's correcting, I do believe that there is a chance from what I'm seeing that we can re-hit lows. Sorry, we can re-hit 75k. The problem is we don't have any confirmation with the 1 hour or the 50 minute. On the 1 hour time frame, there is an indication of price reversal back to bearish trend. As same thing would apply with the 15 minute. If you look at it from the 1 hour, I made this box which represents a support range for buyers from the initial bull trend all the way up here, and then price absolutely disrespected that support line because sellers are in control. Sellers were in control since if you scale out to the 4 hour, the bigger pictures, sellers are in control, right? But the 1 hour is saying we have a possibility that price could be moving towards a bearish trend once again, right? Keep in mind, think of it like checkboxes for every time frame. 4 hour is still on a correction phase, but it's still all in all bearish. 1 hour just turned bullish because it broke through this high. This would count as a high because it was bearish, right? It was bearish it was bearish, so it kept respecting the lower highs until it broke out of that zone, aka the resistance zone, because it's a lower high. So it created a higher high. And then price maintained structure on the bullish trend. And even though it made lower highs, it made higher lows, right? And because of that, price was continuing to respect the bullish trend up until this point, which we can establish now that it's official. Now that price has matured and it's down here, we can establish that this is the resistance zone. This is the common zone where sellers are stepping in and saying, we don't want you guys to come up anymore. Note that on the 4 hour over here, this is where the main momentum sort of just took place, because every time price got to this point in the recent price history, right? Excuse me, I'm like burping. Every time I got to this range, sellers stepped in and created huge rejection, right? So we got rejection here. Buyers came up to this point, huge rejection there, right? So knowing this and understanding this, if price doesn't even want to get to this point alone, right? Because all the action for buyers would take place up here, right? It obviously it took place here because this was the support zone, the recent support zone for buyers. Everything from this point on, like this whole entire session that we're looking at, sellers have always been in control, but sellers from this point specifically, this window right here that we're looking at, sellers were always in control once price pushed to this level, once price pushed to this level, and once price pushed to this level. Why, you might be curious if you're learning ICC, why the hell, how does that make sense? Like why not here, or why not here, why not here, right? When you open up a chart, and not everything, ICC is like primarily, you know, it works when it's obvious. Like, how do I explain this? When I open up a chart, like this is always fundamentally true. This is what ICC represents. This is what I mean when I say obvious, right? And then you have stuff like this, where it's inconsistent, right? If it's a bear structure, it feels inconsistent because it's still breaking highs, right? That might be the part where you get stung with, right? You wouldn't know if we were just looking at this, right? And then you had to use the history of the last, you know, couple of days to determine where price was heading. You wouldn't know that whatever happened here was based off news, right? You wouldn't know that whatever happened here, right, was really just consolidation in the 1 hour, right? This was generally just consolidation, but on the 4 hour, price always has to respect the trend. Price always has to respect what's happening on the bigger picture. And that's something that you, through experience, will determine. Like when I open up a chart, my rule is 10 seconds in, I need to see a picture, and 30 seconds in, I need to have an idea where price is heading. It will probably happen within 15 seconds, to be honest with you. But if it's not that obvious, it's probably a telltale sign to me that I might be forcing something at that point. Then it might be a flawed trade. And, you know, an A plus, I would think it's an A plus trade when it's a B plus trade if I'm thinking too much about it. Then it's like my psychology plays into it. And then if that's not perfect, then it's a flawed trade, right? So overall, the bigger picture has to show you like price confirmation is making a bearish trend. It's respecting the lower highs. If we're moving down, right? Every time it gets to a high, sell it. Oops. Every time it gets to a lower high, price is always respecting the resistance zone because sellers overall are always trying to push it down. That makes sense, right? So price from this point on, using whatever just happened right now, like within the past 2 days. So I got out. I want to look for the next trade because that's what price is showing me, right? On the 4 hour, it literally just looks like we're on the 4 hour chart. So it literally just looks like price made two directions, right? That's it. If you account for the structure in which price was presenting to us before we even did anything, right? Like when we hop on and we're just looking at the past couple days, really it's just, I would consider this a lower high. It would just be something like this, really, right? So all I'm seeing is the story just keeps going down and down and down, right? And price at this point, it's respecting this lower high because it's not going anywhere higher than this box. In fact, it stopped here. If it's stopping even lower, sure, there is a possibility that we could see a change of character from this point on. We don't know that yet. We don't know anything yet. All we know is that it's still moving down, and this is just a short period of correction, right? Really, I'm basing it off of the fact that this was the newest low, and we broke down that. That's indication, because it's breaking past the newest low. And this new low I would consider to be a key support zone, because this is what was supposed to hold up price when it was consolidating on the 1 hour. Hence why we had this whole bullish push. But then on a macro scale, on the 4 hour, it could not break past this resistance level. So therefore price rejected it down here instead of up here and immediately shot down, right? No news or nothing. That was just the nature of the market, right? Then we come up and we're at this point. So I'm seeing this and I'm going, okay, this is lower than here. This was the initial correction phase for this low that was new at the time. If we consider this to be price right now, right? Like let's hypothetically say this was price. This is the lowest it is. In fact, on the entire chart, this is the lowest point. Then it creates an indication, or the fact that it was already in a bearish trend. This you could technically say this is the continuation phase, because it's respecting the recent lower high based off of price here. They try to push up, buyers try to push up here. Sellers took control and didn't even let them get past this point, okay? After that, the 1 hour and 4 hour confirmed that we would go lower, because, and I could box this off instantly because I know that this is the highest point. This area, or even this area, TBH, made the highest point, right? I use this area because intuitively, like the first 5 seconds of looking at this, price was always pushing up from this point, right? Like here it pushed up, here it pushed up, and here it pushed up, okay? Like I knew that. I didn't make a trade until I got to here. This was the indication on the 1 hour, this area, right? And so I didn't even have to look at the 15-minute when price came up for the correction, right? It respected this high. It came back down, came back up, respected this high. So it just kept respecting the previous high, and that's why it gave me confidence in making the short trade. And here we're kind of seeing the same pattern take place, where price made this higher, sellers are in control here. They're given a little question mark here on the 1 hour, the indication phase, can we get lower than this support zone, right? And so now we're looking at in real time the correction zone, which is can price, if we're looking to short, maintain structure and reject these levels, meaning can we get here and then just come back down? Then we're back in the indication range. Then we're back in the short range, which is the range where we want to short Bitcoin, right? And so what exactly am I going to be shorting from this point on? Well, if I know that buyers are in control here, if I know that on the daily, right, this is the psychological point for buyers to step in, and they stepped in strong. Like this was a strong indication of buyers stepping in, right? Even though on a candle, if you use candles, because candles are stronger than wicks, the candles closed out in the indication zone. So we're possibly looking at a new support zone if the 4 hour maintains bearish structure. So this is a trade that I would consider to monitor if I get into a short, so long as the 4 hour respects the lower highs, right? Which it is, it's respecting lower highs. We want to get in again. We have to confirm the 1 hour and 15 minute to be safe. So the play would look something like this. I would target the lowest candle. Personally, it is a personal reference. I'm sorry, personal preference. I would initially target the first candle. This would be a very small size to short because of the RR. It's pretty much a 1-to-1 RR if you consider fees, right? I'm studying this in real time. I would definitely consider a short here and just be real small with the size that I enter. And if we continue to maintain structure, so Bitcoin continues to respect the lower highs on the macro, then I would look at the next support zone, which is 74K. And at 74K, we're looking at a 1 to 1.76 RR. It's not really necessarily like a super attractive play, TBH. If you wanted to look for extreme, like really good gains, you'd probably want to look for a turnaround event where price actually respects the zone. The 4 hour begins to break through key resistance points. Preferably this one if you want to make, let me illustrate it, preferably this zone. If you want to be extremely conservative, like it's a probability game. You could do it here, you could do it here. I would prefer a key point where I know that price is always rejecting buyers, right? Really, the safest option would be here because everything up from here is just momentum, right? But we're not looking at that. We're just eyeballing the short play right now, a 1 hour short play. And in real time, price is respecting this high, when we're looking at a bearish trend, price is respecting the high. If we decide to reach the indication zone, you could risk it low key, because like, let's say price closes out here, right? And for the 1 hour, because we're looking at the 1 hour, and then it closes down here. You can still, considering the fact that the 4 hour is still bearish, the 15 minute is already bearish at that point. If the 1 hour closes and it cannot pass this indication zone or this correction zone that we illustrated, right? Because it's underneath this support zone, then you can take the risk and say, okay, if price is respecting this, and this is technically the 1 hour correction zone, and this is technically the 15-minute correction zone, but this is not the 4-minute correction zone, I'm still exposed to more risk, considering that this is actually the correction zone for the 4 hour, and price is always respecting the higher time frame. So I'm more susceptible to whatever happens in this area if I take the trade here. But we know that the confirmations, if they turn out to be confirmed, so the 1 hour and the 15 minute, we know that if it closes out here in the indication range, then we could take a chance that, let's say we decide to short from here, we would have stronger gains, so there'd be more returns, and we would just be working off the 1 hour and 15 minute. Really, if you had to work off that, you were also working off the fact that price could just tap out. Let's say we confirm the trend, it would tap out for the 1 hour. It could tap out here because that's where the 1 hour made a higher low. It could tap out here because that's where the 15 minute would be, right? And you have to consider this whenever you're thinking about momentum, time frame correlation. 4 hour and the daily bearish, cool, right? We could even go lower than that. Price could even push down here, to be honest with you. That'd be an insane play. The reason why I'm saying this is because the weekly is already breaking past support zone, and it's already in a confirmed downtrend based off of price action here. 4 hours already confirmed bearish structure. So all of these will check out. Hence why this is it's still a reasonable area of return, of like risk and return. It just depends at the end of the day what you want with your trade. Initially, when I'm playing this, I will be monitoring this level. I will probably take partials from this level, right? Initially, we can take profits here. I would monitor, take partials, and then just see if price can push past it. If not, if we start to see price sort of range out here, then I would just cut out my trade and just take whatever I got, right? Because at that point, we would probably see price begin to respect the low and try to retest the resistance levels. And that's for the weekdays coming up. That's for when market opens for, general, when the general market opens, like for New York, for the stock exchange and all that crap. So Bitcoin's a weekend pair. It'll work any day of the week. You would want the most volatility so that price actually respects whatever's happening with the market. Otherwise, you're kind of just throwing a dart into the dark, right? But that's what we're looking at based off of a technical analysis when we're looking at price, time frame correlations, confirmations, and price action. So I'm not in this trade right now. I'll be monitoring this in the meantime, but we'll make sure to check that out in the next video. So yeah.